What's up? So today we'll be doing a different video. Today we'll be doing another movie review, but this time for Enchanted. With Disenchanted coming out I think this month, in November, I've decided to, take a look back and review its original film. So this film starts off with a book. So it first starts off with the Disney logo, but then it starts off with a book where the narrator talks about how there's a queen and how she's meant to, you know, there's a queen and how she's meant to be there's an evil queen, of course, right? And she has the throne, but Giselle is meant to take over that throne, but the queen doesn't want it. So we cut into Giselle singing in her room, talking about how she wants to find that prince. She wants to find that prince, and then by random chance, this prince played by Cyclops decides to play by Cyclops himself, or Donut Lord James Marsden. Donut Lord Marsden decides to show up, and he immediately sees Giselle singing and is like, "Oh, guess what? I'm in love now." So yeah, but a troll attacks them and tries to destroy Giselle, but she's able to be saved by able to stop and be saved by Edward. But his mom is not happy about that. So she's not happy about her son finding love, because that means Giselle would take, if she marries, that means Giselle would take her throne, and she is not having it. So she decides to create smoke and turn into an old woman to basically convince Giselle that the wishing well she made will make a wish. But instead, she pushes Giselle down it. Giselle screams, and she reveals that she sent Giselle to a place where there's no happily ever afters. Basically, modern day Earth. Because according to the animated world, we have no happily ever afters. But we do. Modern world. So Giselle is basically now the fish out of water who now has to learn everything about Earth and has to learn everything about Earth. So we see this guy named Robert, and he's driving around with his daughter. Yeah, and he gives her one of the weirdest presents ever. A book about history. Like, no little girl wants to see a book about history. Robert, what were you thinking? So he sees Giselle and is just like, oh, a girl trying to get into a foam tower? Oh, she must be savable. So she falls and he saves her and lets her live with him. So she starts talking about how there's happily ever after, and he's like, oh yeah, that really? So he lets her stay, and that is very not cool for his girlfriend Nancy, who basically played by Idina Menzel. Yeah, Idina Menzel is in this movie, and she obviously is mad that a girl that her boyfriend is lying on top of some girl and leaves. Yeah. So meanwhile, Narissa, played by Susan Sarandon, decides to convince her loyal lackey Nathaniel to go to Earth to track down her son, who's also there. So he falls down, and he has one of the most weirdest disguise changes ever. He decides to immediately go and change and try, and yeah. So yeah. Immediate disguiser changes ever. But anyway, yeah. So Giselle starts falling in love with Robert, and Robert starts falling in love with her, and you know. But Edward runs into Nathaniel and is like, "Hey, let's have our own adventure together." And then he's like, oh yeah, let's have our own adventure together. So yeah, so Nurse decides to give Nathaniel some poison apples to hopefully kill Giselle. Yeah, this is three Disney movies rolled up into one. It's Snow White, Maleficent, and I think Sleeping Beauty. I forget. But yeah, three movies roll up into one. So he tries his best to get Giselle to eat the candy apples, the poison apples, by first getting them in caramel, and that doesn't work. And then a bunch of other plans doesn't work. And Marissa is all right mad that her lackey has failed. So Giselle her and the daughter Morgan, she's talking about how she wants Nancy to. She's sad that Nancy will be her stepmom, but then she's like, oh yeah, she's talking about Edward's mom and how she's just lovely, but yeah, she wants to kill her. So Nurse decides to be like, I've had enough of Nathaniel failing me. I'm gonna go down to Earth to kill Giselle myself because yeah, she decides to show up and immediately discovers Nathaniel, who's just in a car because since Nurse yelled at him, he's just like, I thought I knew this woman, but she's not who I thought she was. And she's like, yo, dude, miss her. So then Pip gets all scared, and so then Nurse decides to use her powers to basically use her powers to discover where Giselle is and discover she's at this ball, and so Giselle's at this ball and she's hanging out with Edward, but she's a little bit conflicted because she's she dances with Edward and she dances with Robert, but she's a little conflicted because she's like, does she love Robert? Does she love Edward? But then when she sees Nancy and Robert kiss, that gets her all sad. But Narissa shows up back in her lady's form to convince Giselle that she basically touches Giselle in a very uncomfortable way and says about how she misses Giselle and how she was worried about her. But yeah, nah, she wasn't. So then she says about how she can convince if Giselle eats the poison apple that she gave her, she can convince her to erase her memories of Earth and go back to living in a fantasy land. So, what does Giselle do? She doesn't think it's suspicious. She doesn't say, hey, some random stranger is convincing her to eat this apple. No, she just eats it and falls unconscious. So, Narissa, not being smart, decides to randomly take an elevator with the unconscious Giselle on her back. Like, Narissa, what are you thinking? I don't get it. Like, how'd she come in? She came in probably by the front door. But she decides to use an elevator. What is she thinking? So immediately everyone sees this and is worried about Giselle. She randomly decides to turn back into her human form. Edward sees. She decides to play dumb and says, oh yeah, she's fine. But best point in the thing was here is he finally realizes that Narissa is evil and decides to confront Narissa, telling Edward the fact that Narissa was evil. She was the old woman the entire time, and that he helped her. So he's like, hey, when we get back to Indonesia, I'm gonna tell everyone what you did, and you are going to lose your throne. And she's like, aren't you being a little melodramatic? And then Edward says one of the funniest lines ever. He says, I don't know what melodramatic means. I love him. So Edward decides to kiss her, but it doesn't work. So Robert decides to kiss her. He takes his sweet time doing it for some reason. He just decides to say random stuff, taking his sweet time, waiting for his kiss, and he kisses her and she wakes up. And she says, I knew it was you. Like, this is weird. he took his sweet time. So then Narissa gets mad over Giselle not being dead and turns into a dragon form like sleeping like Maleficent and she says about how she's gonna create a fake story about how how she couldn't help herself from killing Giselle. But Robert's like, yo, I'm the main character. I'm the main dude of this movie. I'm not gonna let anyone stop her. I'm not gonna let Giselle be dead. But Narissa's like, okay, well, you're my next kill victim. Bye. So Giselle decides to pull a Cinderella, leaving her slipper on the floor as she goes all badass and saves Robert. So, yeah. She goes all, and Idina Menzel's character is just like, yeah, go kiss her. I forgot to mention that. Idina, but okay. So Giselle decides to go fight one-on-one with Narissa with just a sword and a no shoe. A sword and a no shoe. She's the best. So she decides to fight shoeless and decides to fight Narissa, but Narissa's like, yo, I'm not going down that easily. But Pip's like, yeah, you are, and kicks her, causing her to fall off the rail and die. So she won't be in the sequel. So she dies. Edward decides he likes Nancy Tremaine, not anything to do with the Cinderella character. Kind of funny that they. So he decides he likes Nancy and gives her the shoe, which fits her for some reason. I guess she and Giselle are the same height, or that was her shoe the entire time. Who knows? So she decides to go to the animated world and live her life with Donut Lord Marsden. Giselle decides to stay in the human world and live her life with Robert. And that's kind of where the movie ends. This movie terrified me as a kid, but now, remembering it in my head, it's just like, it's a perfect movie. Like, I'm excited for the sequel. Because they're kind of, in the sequel, they're kind of making it look like Giselle is going to be the main antagonist, but they're kind of making it look like Maya Rudolph's the main villain. It's kind of confusing. Who's the main villain of the real movie? Is it Giselle or is it Maya Rudolph? Who knows? In this movie, Giselle's kind of a cute fish out of water, but next movie, she's going all evil. Because next movie, she has a midlife crisis where she chooses that she'd rather live in the animated world, so she makes her town an animated town and goes all evil. And Morgan, the main kid from this movie, has now been recast to be a 16-year-old person. So anyway, yeah, that was Enchanted. Remembering it all in my head. Not watching this movie and remembering it all in my head was cool. Don't know how I did it, but I still liked it. It was a good movie. I might actually watch it right now. It was a good movie. Giselle was a cool main character. Edward, why did Robert take his sweet time before he could kiss Giselle? Like he took his sweet time trying to sit there saying all that stuff to Giselle. It's just like, Robert, you know this girl's dying and you're just gonna wait there to say some random stuff before you save her? And yeah, the whole thing of Narissa in her old lady form touching Giselle, that was a little creepy. I find that a little disturbing to watch. Seeing her touch Giselle and move her body over Giselle's body, it was creepy. If Narissa wouldn't have died, she should have been arrested because she touched a person as an old lady. She touched Giselle while she was in her lady form, and since Edward knows the truth about his mom, if she would have not stayed dead, she could have been arrested or something and go back to Andalusia and go to Andalusian jail for touching Giselle. That creepy. That was messed up. But anyway, yeah, next film, I don't know. Hopefully I like the next Enchanted movie, because nobody did like Hocus Pocus 2 when everyone said it was really good. Hopefully I do like Disenchanted, because I just don't know. I kind of feel conflict over them making Giselle the villain. Like, I get it. She's being trapped in this curse where she's in a fairy tale land, where she's making her new town a fairy tale land. So is this whole movie about having midlife crises? The next one? So anyway, that's it for this video, and I'll see you next time for some more videos that I do, and hopefully I'll be reviewing Disenchanted, because hopefully it's not as bad as this one. Again, Robert took his sweet time saving Giselle. Sweet time saving you, Giselle. So you should be glad. On my glory road.